Now let's say we want to actually render the animation. So how do we set up the render? What we're going to do is we're going to click on the printer icon. That's for output. So we have the frame rate, 24 frames per second. We have the start and end range, frame 1 to frame 250. If your animation is longer or shorter, just by modifying this, you can change the length of it. You can see the light gray is what's going to actually be captured. So let's just change it back to 250. Here we have the output. So this is very important. So you need to select where you want your animation to be saved to. In my case, I want to save it to my desktop, and I'm going to name it as fly-through. I'm going to click accept. Next up is the settings. So the file format you want is FFmpeg video. The container you want is MPEG-4. MPEG-4 is essentially a universal video format. Going down here for audio codec, you want this as AAC. So you might have heard MP3, some other audio forms, but AAC surprisingly is the universal audio format. So by having these set up, that's how we can actually render it out. Now, the very last thing I want to do is, here, let's do render image. Okay. So this is what it looks like. So that's just a single frame, and it looks pretty good, right? Well, let's go in here. We're going to click on the render properties, the camera icon. Okay, go to color management, and watch what happens here. So right now it's on standard. By default, it's going to be filmic. So you see how it's not as bright or as sharp. So filmic is more realistic, but if you want more of a stylized look, you might want standard. So you can also play around with the settings here in order to get a different look. I personally like standard. That's just my style. Your style might be different. That's perfectly fine. What we're going to do now is we're going to file, let's see, file, save. Okay. And when we do render animation, it's going to render this as an MPEG-4 video. Now, if we go back here to here, let me just move this guy over to the printer icon, the file format. If we click on this, we can see it's a PNG. So by default, it's PNG. And what's going to happen is it's going to render every single frame as an individual image. Now, the file size just kind of blows up because of that. So that's why I personally like just rendering it straight to FMPEG video. The downside to that is if Blender crashes while rendering the video, then you pretty much lose everything. So that's why some people like doing the PNG, because they can just go off to where the last frame was. So let's just do file save. We are going to render this out. So render animation. And we can see it is rendering. And it's going frame by frame. So once it's done, it'll just stop. One way to figure that out is right now it's telling us what frame it's on. And down here, we see the little bar. That's telling us the percentage of how done is a single frame. So it's not the entire video, it's of a single frame. So once the frame reaches 250, then it will be done. But overall, this looks pretty decent. It has a nice stylized look. It's clean. And there we go. It finished. So we can see we're on frame 250, and that's where we ended at. So let's just save this real quick. And I'm just going to close this blend. So here is the fly through. So if I click play, and this is what it looks like. So it looks pretty decent. So it didn't take too much work, but it looks clean.